Hello. Last night I was cruising the camping sites and I found this movie, Wuthering Heights by Bronte. This is an old film, 19 probably 50s, and Laurence Olivier in it. And I saw that film long time ago, and I'm not sure I had much impression from that, but the book itself, Emily Bronte's um, The Wuthering Heights, I read the book. I read the book by audio CD when I was driving a car. And usually I enjoy that experience of rather fast-moving stories because you are listening to this reading, and regardless of you don't understand or you understand, just goes by, you know. And so when I read that, wow, this is after I read Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre, I did the same way on the audio CD, and I really loved it, the Jane Eyre, and oh wow, I have to read the Wuthering Heights because they are considered to be a classic British literature. But when I read that by audio book, I couldn't understand. The only thing that I remembered after reading this is that this Heathcliff is very revengeful in such a way that he's not like a manly manner. It's very I would say kind of a passive aggressively, I think revengeful. And I didn't have a good impression of Heathcliff, and I didn't like the book at all. And I was telling my friends, well, compared to Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights was terrible, and oh gosh, I hated it, and so forth. But so this is a classic, therefore I should go back to find what's wrong with me that I didn't enjoy it. And so I found this British TV drama of Wuthering Heights. Tom Hardy, I think he was playing the Heathcliff. And I thought that was like a very loyal to those book, story-wise. It's a mini-series, therefore there are several hours of those story going on. And so I really liked that TV drama, and then finally I started to appreciate the story. And it's about still though, they're very focused on the revenge of Heathcliff to surrounding people. Heathcliff was adopted by this particular family, who I think this father went to some town and picked him up because he was orphan or something, and so he brought him, and that's why this Heathcliff became one of the family members. In the family there was this two child, and that is the Hindley and Catherine. And Catherine and Heathcliff was pretty much same age, and immediately they kind of became friends. But Hindley, a little bit older, didn't like Heathcliff, and while father was alive, he was kind of trying to be low key a little bit, even though he did a lot of bad things to Heathcliff. But after father died, all of a sudden Hindley became a main household master. Therefore, Hindley started to treat Heathcliff as like a servant or something like that, and Heathcliff suffered. But Catherine and Heathcliff remained very, very loyal to each other. However, I like to go through all the story-wise. I have to write down the story by reading the synopsis, because for me to understand this particular Wuthering Heights story, you really have to pay attention. If you just read through it without paying much attention on who's who and what the relationship who, you get confused. Definitely you get confused. So you have to go very slow reading, and you really have to understand what's going on there. So Catherine and Heathcliff were in love, but Catherine wants to have a better life. Heathcliff is just treated as a servant there in the household. Wasn't promising that Heathcliff never become rich or whatever. So Catherine meets somebody called Edgar Linton. Edgar, in some kind of a dog biting accident, Edgar and Catherine become friends at a good term. And so Edgar and Catherine got married. So Heathcliff wasn't happy. And Heathcliff left the household and went to America or someplace like that. And but Heathcliff came back after got the education, and also became a rich person, and came back because he wanted to do a revenge to Hindley, which is Catherine's brother. And Catherine already behaving a little bit distant, but already had Edgar in her mind. And so got very, very complicated. Hindley had marriage and had a son, Hilton. And Catherine and Edgar married and had a daughter named Catherine again. And Heathcliff himself also, Catherine got married with Edgar. Still have not happy, not so much. And when he came back from America, he started to do revengeful things to Hindley, old torturer to Heathcliff, and also trying to get Catherine back. Catherine kind of backslid between Edgar and Heathcliff, because her true mind is in love with Heathcliff, but as financially is much better off being married with Edgar. So the story goes on from there. So this daughter of Catherine Edgar, Catherine, is kind of married to Hindley's son Hilton, but Hilton kind of a misfortune or something that dies or somewhere, and Heathcliff and Edward has a sister named Isabel. So Heathcliff married Isabel, even though Heathcliff's mind is still Cathy. But Isabel married, and produced a boy named Linton. Okay, so Linton is the last name of this Edgar Linton, right? Edgar. But Heathcliff, Isabel Linton, son names Linton. Very confusing there. And so after a while, this little young girl, Catherine, got married with Linton. Finally. Oh, no, sorry. Got married with Hareton. Oh gosh, I'm confused there. I was like, I think the Linton, yeah, see, I don't know what's the ending of this. But anyway, so last night I watched this Laurence Olivier's playing Heathcliff in a black and white film, beautifully done, and it's the story is doesn't cover whole thing there, and it covers I think mainly focused on Heathcliff. Heathcliff was depicted very righteous, but a little bit revengeful, but not so much, kind of a unfortunate hero. And but the movie itself focused on Catherine and Heathcliff love story whole through, even though Catherine meantime married with Edgar and so forth. But their child never played a major role in the particular film. Although books goes on, and I think those younger generations love story gets a little bit more interesting and so forth. And it's like East of Eden, like a generation of a family has a very like a repetitive type of relationship, and the life goes on for generations. And so, well, even though I read the synopsis, still it's very, very difficult to understand what this particular story is. That means you really have to read slowly and try to go a little by little progress, I would say. Especially, you are reading this story of the man revenging, and which is not that comfortable to read. And after a while, this particular character, Heathcliff, you kind of a question, wow, how this particular person's persistence of revenge in a very, very passive, aggressive manner, which very, very uncomfortable to read. But at the end, I think you feel like, as I understand the story, probably enjoyable reads for most people. I think, up and down of the people's misfortune, revenge, story, and different generations, those story carried on. And so, gosh, I don't know, I recommend this particular read, Wuthering Heights, to anybody. But if you're smart enough to keep up this, straighten up all this relationship, and definitely it is the good read. It's an enjoyable, fun read to see all different relationship developing and so forth, and revenge and love and so forth. So movie, I think a particular Laurence Olivier's movie got like Academy Award or something like that. It's very highly rated. So if you want to see just cleaned up, Heathcliff oriented movie, you just want to see that. But that's not enough. I think if you read the book, it's much, much deeper and much more convoluted, and it's fun to read this convoluted story. And essentially, I would recommend people to read the book of Emily Bronte, and with patiently, keeping track of who's who, and this generation changes, the name all becomes similar name, Catherine. Mother and the daughter is the same name, Catherine. And Linton's, his first son is named Linton, and the mother's, his first wife, Isabella's last name is Linton, and Edgar Linton. Okay, so it's very confusing. So, that's my few cents. I think classic literature, if it's kind of considered to be a quintessential British novel, even though it's difficult to understand what the relationship, what the storylines, I think you better stick to it, and you want to read through to the final. My personal stories that I was telling other friends that, that was terrible, Wuthering Heights is terrible, and I would never read it again, and oh gosh. But after a while, I changed my mind, and I think you have to listen to other people's opinion, and you really have to be a little bit patient to understand the stories, and just the fun of reading the book. I think that's my few cents today. I think there are lots of literature. When you read it, I think you don't first reading. Even though this is very, very popular, I hate it. But before you hate it, you're declaring that to somebody else. You want to sit back and relax a little bit and think about it, or read it again. And then that, I think you may change your opinions to that. And I think this is one of the book I changed my opinion, and I consider this to be, in future, in my reading career, in future, I would like to read it again, because it's like when you sit back and read, you absorbed in the particular story, it's very enjoyable there. And so, that's my few cents today about Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. Okay, thank you. Bye.